Hello everybody, it's Chef Don here, and today I'm going to go through the chicken fricassee recipe right now. So it is a classic French dish that utilizes the leg, thigh pieces of the chicken. So I've fabricated this from a whole chicken. Some of them I've taken the bones out of in the thigh pieces. So you can see these couple here that I've deboned. All right, and one thing I'll point out that you might have noticed in the fabrication video is this piece here called the oyster. Okay, that's a piece of meat that's attached to the bone of the rib cage that you scrape off, and you want to have that kept whole because it's a really nice tender piece of meat. So the breasts we're going to save, and that we utilize those in our next video when we do the chicken breast saute. So I'm going to utilize all the legs and thigh pieces here. Now you can put in the wings if you wanted to use the chicken wings and add those into. I chose not to do that. Better off using those, in my opinion, for an appetizer, just frying them up. So what this kind of recipe is it's called a pan sauce, meaning all the flavors are going to build inside of the pan, rather than making a sauce first on the side like an Alfredo or a bechamel or something like that, and then putting it on the finished product. We're actually making the sauce with what we're cooking in one big dish. Now this could be served over rice or with a potato, but you don't even really have to do that. It could just be by itself. You could add some vegetables into it if you wanted to. But we're going to stick with the classic procedure right here. So again, I have my chicken, I have some diced up onion, I have some white wine, I have some flour that we're going to use for actually making the roux out of this right in the pan. But I've seasoned the flour. It's important to season the flour whenever you're going to dredge or use the flour for a cooking process. I find it adds more level of flavor to your finished dish. We also have the sachet d'espices, which you should remember from early in the semester, which is your thyme and your parsley stems and bay leaf and garlic and peppercorns. Right? And that is how we're going to season a sauce and then still be able to pull it out at the end without it getting in the sauce. So this is, we're also going to use a little heavy cream. So this is a white sauce. So even notice that for the pepper, we use white pepper. So classically, this sauce should be very clean looking when we're done. And when it's finished, you'll see what I mean by being clean. Okay? So I have all my ingredients already set up to try to make this quick as possible. So I have a saute pan ready to go. I have some clarified butter in there. All right, so I'm going to turn that on and start to warm it up. Remember, clarified butter means that you've melted the butter and separated out the milk solids from the top. And you're using the oil in the middle and not the kind of watery substance that comes at the bottom of it as well. So I'm going to season my chicken real quick. A little salt and pepper. Again, whenever you have any kind of meat, seafood, you should always season at least with a little salt and pepper before cooking. Again, it adds layers of flavor rather than just putting it in at the end. So just a little salt and white pepper on these. You can even rub it in a little bit. And I'm not looking to get browning on this. Remember, I said it's kind of a clean looking sauce. So I don't want to sizzle in that pan. So I'm putting my chicken in right away. Right after I've turned it on, I haven't given it a chance to get real hot because I'm not searing it and I don't want a lot of color. So I'm just going to start to cook that through in the pan, all right, again without browning, and then I'm going to add some onion to it, okay? So again, I don't want a lot of sizzle. Remember the term that we've talked about in class before with meats, right? When you're getting browning on it, caramelization, caramelizing the sugars of the protein. Okay, so we're cooking this. I'm keeping my heat at kind of a medium-ish high. So again, that the chicken kind of stays that whitish, opaque color rather than getting a nice brown color. Now that'll be completely the opposite when we do the next video with our chicken breast saute. For this one, we just want to keep that moving around a little bit. All right. Once we add the onion in, same thing. I'm not looking to caramelize the onion at all, because why would I caramelize the onion if I didn't caramelize the meat? I don't want to have some brown bits and some not brown bits. I want to stay consistent. All right. Now, cooking this chicken through, even though I'm not browning it, I'm still creating a little bit of a layer on the outside. But it's going to cook through once we start to make the sauce in the pan. So I'm not worried about, you know, what the internal temperature is of the chicken at this point. I'm just kind of creating a little barrier on the outside so that it stays nice and moist at the end. But again, this is going to all cook right inside of the pan. I'm not going to change pans here at all. All right. And another term you should remember from earlier in the semester is something called fond. So fond are the particles or pieces of protein, meat, beef, chicken, veal, whatever, that stick to the bottom of the pan when you cook it, and then you release those bits with liquid later on in the cooking process. We have some wine that we're going to use, and that gets incorporated right into the finished sauce that is part of this dish, along with our chicken stock, right? So remember the term fond. Right, so again, no browning here. We're just cooking it a little bit. We want the onions to start to turn translucent, right? Instead of browning, they are translucent. Okay. I'm just going to tie up my sachet that I started for you. So that can end up going into this pan as well. Once I get that tied up. And again, remember the roux, I have some flour right here. The roux I'm going to make right inside of the pan. So I want to make sure I have enough butter in there when I'm done cooking the chicken and onions. If I don't, I can add a little bit more because you have to have that fat to add the flour to make the roux. But again, instead of making things separately, we're going to make the roux right inside of that pan. Okay? And keep your chicken moving. Again, we don't want to leave it, even though I have kind of a medium-low heat, I can still end up with some browning if I let it go too long on any one side. So I want to keep moving that around. And you can see the onions. You'll have a little bit of a sizzle in your pan, but you don't want it to get too much. And if it does, just turn that heat down a bit. Okay, so we don't get that caramelization. Again, it adds to that nice, clean, finished white color that we're going to have in our overall dish when we're done. So as this cooks, again, the flour is going to get added into the pan in about 30 seconds or so, and I'm going to make that roux right in there with the onions. I'm then going to take the chicken out, okay, and I'm going to deglaze the pan with the white wine. I'm just going to take the chicken out and set it aside. It's eventually going to go back into the dish. And again, deglaze with a little white wine. I'm going to add my stock. I'm going to mix that all up and get that to a simmer and start to cook. And then the chicken will go back in to finish cooking. Okay, so we're getting really close to that point. I kind of just have the chicken cooked on all sides. Again, it's not done through. I'm not worried about finishing it to 165 yet. It's going to go back in this pan once we have the sauce going. So I'm just looking to get a little bit of seal on the outside of that meat. Okay, so once I have that, I can take this chicken out, okay, and as you can see, it's still raw inside. That's fine. Not finished yet. It's just one step. So I'm going to take that chicken out, and I wish we could have smells go through the video, but unfortunately we can't because it smells real good right now as that chicken is cooking. And you can see those onions, right? Add a little bit more butter in there. Again, just because I'm making a roux, not because I need more butter for my onions, but because I want to make my roux. Okay. So now I'm going to sprinkle some flour in there. And you remember, fat and flour equal parts to make your roux. So if you need to measure this out first, that's fine. If you measure out your butter and then weigh out your flour so it's equal parts. I've been doing this for a while, so I can kind of eye it. But if you want to do that, that's fine. Nice and easy. And that is in the recipe to weigh out your flour and measure out your butter so you have the right amounts. Now when you're eyeing it, what am I looking for in a roux? Well, I'm looking for that it has a little bit of consistency to it. Not quite Play-Doh, but fairly similar. all right, where it's kind of tightened up a bit, but it shouldn't be dry and flaky, and it shouldn't be runny and liquid either. And then of course I want to cook it out for a little bit, because whenever we make a roux, we need to cook it out so it has that nutty aroma. It smells like almost like fresh roasted peanuts when you're cooking the roux, because roux isn't just for thickening, it's also for flavor. Okay, so now that I have my roux looking pretty good, my next step would be to add my wine. Okay. Just going to mix that in there. Nice white wine, doesn't really matter, anything you had left over that you didn't really want. You can see it start to cake up a little bit. But I'm also going to add my chicken stock here, and this is a fresh stock. This is not base. So when I fabricated the whole chicken, I saved the carcass part of the chicken, the rib cage, the bones that I had left over, and I made a stock out of it. Right? Remember, stock is just taking your mirepoix, your carrot, celery, and onion, a sachet, again, your sachet de spice, cold water, and letting that come to a simmer, and then cooking it down at a low temperature for about 2 to 3 hours. You don't want to leave it too long because it can get bitter. So you see this sauce already starting to develop. Okay? And some more chicken stock. It is going to cook down, so I want it a little loose now, because as it cooks it will thicken more, so I don't want that finished texture yet. And then the chicken is going to go back in here to simmer. Alright. Now unfortunately I didn't make another portion of chicken ahead of time, so I can't just go to the magic of videos for you. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this going, and then we're going to stop the video, and then when we come back for the chicken saute, I will give you the finished product here, how it looks, before we begin working on our chicken breast saute. Alright, so now my chicken pieces, and you can see some of the blood in there, that's fine. Again, we're going to let it simmer in here and cook right in these juices, this pan sauce that we made. Okay, it's called a pan sauce because it's all done in the pan, even though I took the chicken out and I put it back in again. Okay, in French this is called à la minute, or at the minute. Again, meaning it's not a sauce that I made ahead of time and then added on top of the finished chicken or beef or whatever it happened to be. Rather, it was made right in the same pan, and the sauce was created for each individual dish. Okay? So I'm just going to add a little salt. Be careful with the salt. It's going to cook down for a while, so we don't want too much. And a little more pepper. Then I'm going to let that simmer. Okay? Now again, I'm going to end the video in a second here, and we're going to pick up with the next part, and I will show you the finished dish. So if you want to get your ingredients started, if you have the stuff at home, start doing that, and we'll be back soon.